Hi, Ken from Intermix Two Wheels here. I'm going to do a little bit about the rear derailleur. I've got one here, fresh out of the box. I've had a few queries and questions about what's what on a rear derailleur. This is a bolt-on one, really for the older frame. You see the rear wheel fits in here, and this connects to the frame and tightens up. So you can see that bolt that goes through to the other side of the frame and tightens up. So that's the bolt type rear derailleur. Straightforward, this one. You've got these two grub screws, I'm going to call them. Just point them out with my tool, my hex screwdriver. One here and one there. So those are your upper and lower limiters. So they limit how far up or down that derailleur is able to swing. When I say up or down, we're talking about from gear 1 to gear 7. So the high and the low gear, say gear 1 to 7, basically that's on a 7 or 21 speed bike. It could be 1 to 8 on a 24 speed, or 1 to 10, depending on the type of gear setting you've got. If we flip this rear derailleur, you can actually see on this one, let's get a close up in there, that's the grub screw. Coming in at the top just here is the grub screw that you would be adjusting. And if you look at the bottom edge of the grub screw, you can see it's up against the housing of the frame of the rear derailleur. And that's how this works. By tightening that screw up, it actually puts pressure against that bit of the housing and moves the main part of the housing away from that part of the frame. So by pushing it forwards, you're pushing this piece backwards, and vice versa. By slackening, you're allowing it to come forward. And that's how the limitation works. And that's when it's at rest. If you go to the other grub screw, which we can just see around here, you see there's nothing there at the moment. But under pressure, that would be up against this part of the frame just here. Yeah, and that's where you limit how much you go towards gear number 1, which is the biggest gear on the bike. And if you're going past it, you can adjust the tension of that screw in, which will draw the body away, or go in reverse and draw the body of the frame out. So it's this fine adjustment, one direction or the other for gear 1, and this one is for gear 7 or 8, depending on how many gears you've got, but it's the smallest cog. So again, that's what limits it. If I just squeeze it a little bit, you can see that that's how that mechanism works, and the resistor stops it from going too tight in that way or too far out across the other way. Okay. You've also got at the back here the input for the cable, which comes through and gets clamped here. So that's where from your gear shifter, the cable will come through here and get locked off here. And as you put the resistance via the thumb shifter, that triggers that gear to move to the correct position. If I go a little closer, you can see here on this screw where the cable goes in, you've got the ability to adjust the tension, so you can take up the slack by winding it anti-clockwise, or you can give it more slack by winding it clockwise. The idea being that once you've got it set up on the bike and you're changing the gears, by twisting this, you can get some fine adjustment. So once it's locked in and clamped in position, you can then use this for your fine adjustment. I've already mentioned the 2 grub screws here. There's one more screw at the back here, which is basically a bit of a standoff screw. So what that does is it pushes the rear derailleur away from the frame ever so slightly, which causes it to do that motion. Again, it's a very minor adjustment against the frame, and normally you don't have to do a great deal with it. It normally fits fine. But if you find your chain is ever so slightly rubbing on its way around, so it's touching both the front derailleur wheel and the back derailleur wheel, adjusting that will give you a little bit more tension. You can see that movement there to enable your rear derailleur to take up that little bit of slack. Okay, so that's it. That's the Shimano rear derailleur. I've taken you through the 2 grub screws, the limitation screws that you can use, the standoff adjustment, the the fine adjustment to increase or release the tension in the cable, and the cable clamp. What we'll do, we'll go and have a look at one of these actually fitted to a bike now. So here we are, we've got the Shimano Tawny rear derailleur. Let's get that in sight. It's actually on a bike. This is a Carrera Crossfire that I've recently serviced up. You can see that the chain is threaded through the S shape. It's in the lowest gear. A point to note on this particular bike that it's got what we call a dropout or a rear MECH. You can buy these. It's actually built as a weak point in the frame. In case of any impact, that piece will bend and break rather than ruin the whole frame. It's just this single piece. They're about £7 to buy a replacement. If you look down the line of the bike, just come around to the side here, down the line of the bike, you can see that that chain and rear derailleur is pretty much in line. There's a little bit of a sway, and I try to make sure that these are completely aligned. So you know that that's aligned here, it'll be aligned at the other end to make sure it's in the gear at the front as well. So align that. If you look right in close here, you could just about see the rear mech. You notice that the distance there is stable all the way down, but you often find that those get bent, twisted, and push your rear mechanism out of alignment, and then you find that all of your other adjustments that you're doing kind of don't really work, because this thing is definitely in the wrong position. You see it's nice and straight there. I have in the past tried a flathead screwdriver in it and pulled those out, or gone the other way around, perhaps with a clamp, and just pushed it back in again and straightened those out. We've actually even taken them out and put them into a bench vise, and tightened up to sort that out as well. So that's it. That's your way around a rear mech. I also mentioned that the previous one I had was a bolt through. This one is a screw on. So there's an Allen key that goes in there that screws this one onto the frame. It's in the smallest gear, which is gear number 7 on this bike. Let's get a little bit of a close up. There you go. That's the smallest gear. and the retaining screw, of which I've got two. I've adjusted the retaining screw to make sure it doesn't come too far this way towards the frame of the bike and therefore fall off. And I've adjusted the other one so it doesn't go too far in gear number 1 and doesn't fall off into the wheel itself. So that's how you would use those two retaining screws or restraining screws, sorry, to stop it from going too far one way or the other. Okay. Again, for tension purposes, the cable on this is well adjusted. It's clamped in position. Just get my camera to show you the clamp in position. A little bit of an untidy cable. I'll come back and tidy that up in a minute. It's clamped in position, and then to do the fine adjustment, I can adjust just here. So that'll adjust the tension. So it's going this way. You can see the silver piece in the middle is rising. That increases the tension and draws the cable towards the inside of the frame. Yeah, and if I go back the other way, that releases the tension and allows the derailleur to come back towards my face or the outside of the frame. Okay, so that's the adjustment of it in the bike. Not everyone has a bike stand, so I'll quickly whip this one upside down on the grass, and from here you can see now, as I rotate the pedals, you can see that it's sitting quite nicely in that gear. I've got the ability to trigger that gears from over here. Come back here, that's in gear number 7. I'm spinning. I've got my grub screw sorted out, so I know it's not going to come off towards the frame. I'm going to just come back across here and give it a quick trigger up one gear, back up the other end. Has it gone? No, it stayed in the same gear. So if I come around to my adjustment screw just around here, I can put some extra tension in. As I spin the pedals around, you can hear it clicking now, so it sounds like it's trying to move up into the next gear. I'll add a little bit more pressure, a bit more tension in there. Wind again. It's physically jumping now, and it's actually gone. It's stepped up into the right gear. A little bit of a hop there. Give it a little bit more because it's making a little bit of a rattle. A little bit more on the adjustment screw. Come back. Well, that's now sounding pretty good. Okay, hopefully that's a few tips to help you on your way to tune up and get some fine adjustment on your rear mechanism.